Hello everyone, William Tramp, also known as This Effin GM here, ready for this week's installment of This Effin Monster. Last week, we planted the seeds of adventure by taking a look at awakened plants. This week, we're craning our necks at the ever-popular Dire Ostrich. Axe Beak. This is a simple stat block with simple abilities, so I won't be taking up too much of your time today, but darn it, I said I was going to do all the stat blocks, and I'll put my head in the sand in shame if I fail. So let's mount up and hit the ground running with this effing monster, the Axe Beak. The base stats of the Axe Beak of 2014 and 2024 have the exact same base stats, save for one small change. In 2014, the Axe Beak was classified as a beast, which is Dungeons & Dragons' term for animals by and large. In 2024, the Axe Beak has been reclassified as a monstrosity, which is Dungeons & Dragons' term for general monsters that don't tend to fit in one of the other big categories. Often, the monstrosity category is reserved for magical experimentations, monsters that have been created through eldritch forces or the like. Now, I guess it includes monsters that don't actually nor never have existed in the real world? None of this is particularly game-breaking, although I am sure that there's one druid player out there who gets pumped about being an Axe Beak, and they might be a little bit disappointed at their, inclusion or disclusion, their lack of inclusion. What is surprising though is that in 2024, a brand new stat block has been presented for the Giant Axe Beak, a bigger, tougher version of the creature. The Giant Axe Beak comes in swinging with a huge size, decent armor class, a great initiative boost, a truck full of hit points, the same speed as the base model, a strength to rival giants, a decent dex, and a prodigious con score. It's ever so slightly smarter than the original, it's wiser, but it's just as convincing. The Giant Axe Beak also gains perception proficiency, retains its ability to speak, and gets a challenge rating of 5, making it just as dangerous as your average unicorn. That's right, a unicorn is challenge rating 5. Did you know that? What makes me laugh a little about the inclusion of the Giant Axe Beak is that, to me, the Axe Beak is already basically a dire ostrich, and as this is the ramped up version of that, this makes the Giant Axe Beak effectively a dire ostrich. Either way, I'm not going to say no to more stat blocks, and I'm sure large-sized giants are going to be excited to have a mount that they can charge into combat on that's not just an elephant or a dinosaur, although dinosaurs are pretty sweet. Let's talk about traits. None. Neither the 2014 Axe Beak nor the 2024 Axe Beak, giant or otherwise, have traits in the stat block, so moving on. Alright, actions. Much like we saw in the base stat block, there's been literally no change in the actions of the Axe Beak between 2014 and 2024. Both employ a beak attack with a +8 to hit, a reach of 5 feet, and deal an average of 6 slashing damage. 6 is expressed as 1d8 + 2, meaning that the Axe Beak's beak is basically a battle axe. I guess if a different artist had been assigned, this might have been called a longsword beak. Oh, that would have been cool, like a dire heron or something. Except herons can fly, the Axe Beak can't. On the other hand, the Giant Axe Beak comes in swinging with 3 separate attack options. First, the Giant Axe Beak gains multi-attack, befitting its much higher challenge rating. The Giant Axe Beak is able to attack with a combination of one sharpened beak and its talons. Sharpened Beak, which is an amazingly named ability that seems to imply that the Giant Axe Beak uses a whetstone on its face, has a whopping +8 to attack, a reach of 10 feet, and hits for an average of 18 slashing damage. Not only that, but the attack also damages the target near the original for another average 6 points of slashing damage, making the Giant Axe Beak a natural cleaver. The Talons attack is also a little special, being made at a +8 to hit at a reach of 5 feet for an average of 14 points of piercing damage. If the target is smaller than the Axe Beak, then the target is knocked prone. You know, I think I may have mentioned this before, but I want to say that I deeply appreciate that in 2024 D&D, a ton of attacks that knock prone or add certain other conditions no longer grant a saving throw against the effect, meaning that gameplay is going to go that much faster, and many monsters are actually going to see their abilities come into play a lot more. Now, how would I use them in battle? As simple monsters, the Axe Beak gets simple tactics. Using their immense speed, Axe Beaks would charge into the fray from a distance and come and swing in with their face, attacking whatever creature seems to be the most vulnerable, which I take to mean as either the smallest or the least armored. They would swing with their faces repeatedly, but are wise enough to know when to skedaddle, and would likely seek to dash away after being reduced to 8 hit points or below. Giant Axe Beaks are a little more tactical as a result of their Talons attack. They would likely charge in as well, targeting the most vulnerable, but come in close for a Talon swipe to knock their prey prone, then swing with advantage against the prone target. The Giant Axe Beak won't avoid crowds, as it knows that its beak can hold off multiple targets at once, but it's still wise enough to know when there is a problem and will dash away once it's reduced to about 30 hit points or lower. Okay, what would I change about them? Not much, really. I think it would be nice if the lesser Axebeak got a talon attack that did a little bit of damage and knocked a foe prone, as I've watched enough Jurassic Park to know that talons are a raptor's best friend. And maybe I would have highlighted their pack mentality a bit more by giving them an ability like pack tactics, or maybe giving them a bonus action jump ability would be appropriate to make sense of its vestigial wings that don't seem to do too much. But otherwise, I just don't see these creatures needing to be much more than they actually are. Giant, angry ostriches with a beak to grind. And that's it! That's the Axebeak and the Giant Axebeak in the 2024 Monster Manual for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. What a rush! Am I right? If you like this video, then make sure to join me next week as I take a look at another elemental humanoid, a fiery staple of Dungeons & Dragons, the incendiary Azers. Thank you for joining me today on this discussion of Axebeaks, and if you're so inclined, please consider liking this video and subscribing to this channel, as I'm trying really hard to achieve my goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of this year, and every like and subscribe helps. Also, if you'd like to hang out and chat monsters sometime during the month of April, I'm going to be heading over to Dixon, Illinois on the weekend of April 25th to celebrate charitable gaming at the D8 Summit charity event. It's a really good time, and it never hurts to play games when you know that the money is going to someone in need. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on This Effin' Monster.